That's true. Okay, so well, here's what the translation file looks like.
Okay,
And
you're not sharing your
I'm
screen
not
just
actually
yet.
sharing it, sorry.
Also, I just want to tell you, LHI did they did their monthly call yesterday, and Ayuda Legal Puerto Rico has answer to eviction in A to J. But of course it's in Spanish. But I just thought it might be interesting to have you probably don't know Spanish, but just be interesting to see how it works.
Yeah, that would be interesting. I mean, it seems like a pretty popular topic, actually.
Yeah,
Evictions are obviously a big area of work.
So here are your translation files. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm actually not sure why they're showing up. Must be some problem with syncing on this computer with the 1 at the end, but I'll just let you see what it looks like.
So you send out the interview, the question ID.
Mm-hmm. And question ID for these, I didn't put an ID on it. This is what I was mentioning the other week when I said it's helpful to put IDs on there.
I was gonna ask you about that, because when you do you did your presentation about what you found were best. The thing that you did, it wasn't the AI thing. It's the other thing, best practices in Docassemble document assembly stuff, right? You did that. Okay.
That was for Docassemble. So
one of the things you talk about is question IDs, but you didn't say a good naming convention, or maybe you're still figuring that out, but I thought that would be a really helpful thing actually to talk about in one of these clinics. But because you learn by doing, and then you make all these mistakes. But if you've come across a good way to ID your question, what would be the best way to do this?
So, well, here's one place where you see the IDs in the translation file.
Yeah.
Another place where you'd see them is in analytics. So
right. So that shows you where people go. Maybe when people leave.
Yeah, I can tell you all the screens that they visited, so you can see.
Right.
Exit page. I haven't played around that much with seeing what are the trouble spots on the interview and how does that play into interviews. I haven't figured out how to use analytics for that yet.
I was going to say analytics also. I don't know if they can, you might think about it, but analytics also does the path that people follow. You can,
exactly.
I don't know,
goals. That's what this is here, behavior flow.
Yeah. Uh-huh. Oh,
so that lets you see how they navigate your page. And I haven't actually, this is the wrong website to look at, really. Let me just change to the MAID interview.
Yeah.
Analytics. So basically, there's no real rules that I've come up with yet. But if you want to be able to refer to them, especially in analytics, and understand what screen they're on, it should be descriptive. And the nice thing about IDs is they can have spaces. There's no formatting rules like there are. There might be some. I'm not sure if there's characters you can't include in them. I've been using lowercase letters, and just have them be descriptive.
Slashes, right? I would guess you don't want slashes, like forward slashes.
Yeah, there probably are some things to avoid, but I've just used lowercase alphabetical letters and nothing else, no special marks. And kind of my convention has been to use. So here we go. We can see what happens if you start with intro screen. And I don't know how accurate it's going to be, but let's see.
Yeah.
You can see where people drop off, I guess.
So where are your question ID? Where are you seeing the question ID?
So
your name.
Yeah. Who is using? I guess it adds underscores to the name no matter what. So
if you have a space there, yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
So that's an
one
example.
Drop off. So that's showing you that 37. So you had 40 something. So 37 people kept going from that question to the next, and one dropped out, and 2 through traffic.
It's actually
and 1 dropped out.
This is just last week, and I'm not sure. I'm not sure exactly how accurate these numbers are, but
but it gives you a sense, right?
It gives you an idea of what are places where people stop using it. I don't know. There we go. So I have an ID on every screen essentially. So it's a lot of, it's a lot of pages. So that's another thing. Like how useful will it be to see that?
Well, maybe with the analytics, you might also be able to figure out, show me, the screen that had the highest number of drop-offs or something like that.
There probably are other ways to analyze it that might be more useful than just looking through the flow.
Yeah.
So that's all I think is just they have to make sense to you so you can see, well, what is the screen where you're having trouble? And then again, in the translation file, what is the screen? So you can figure out the context of your question. So like for this intro screen doesn't really matter, but for other questions, all of the different fields are grouped with the question ID and the main question text. So you want to make sure that you have a name that gives you context for what that screen is all about when you're trying to see if the translation is right. Sometimes some of the words it offers you to translate, you don't want to translate. And this can help you get context for that.
Mm-hmm. That when you say this, those are your question IDs.
These are the question IDs are in column B here. Yep.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So that's basically all that I've learned so far. There might be more advice. Let me see if I can.
Can you show me an example here of something that may have been translated that you didn't need to be translated?
There were a few iterations of this till I figured out. Actually, I could just ask Jonathan if there's a way to generate the file that doesn't have those words that shouldn't be translated. So when you have, I'll go into the YAML file. And he was easily able to make that change, so that was great.
Can I ask a quick question?
Yeah.
I'm just wondering, I missed the earlier presentations where I think you talked about it, but are you saying that spreadsheet can be auto-generated?
Yes, it can.
Super.
Yeah, I didn't go into it in a lot of depth, but this was the DocaCon presentation is the one that Caroline was referring to.
Okay.
All I think I said is that this is one of the benefits of using question IDs at all.
Yeah, he didn't show anything about it. He just, he was just mentioning. It was the presentation was very sort of like conceptual.
Yes.
Gotcha.
Then I was saying that there's some things that would be help, to go a little bit deeper into.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay,
so
cool.
I can give you an example of what I was talking about, what was automatically put into that file originally. Yeah. Which I didn't really want it to be in there, is what I realized. And it's just really when there's multiple choices. So I guess that's what I can search for here. This is
that's what I was thinking. Yeah.
Yeah. You want one version to be translated on the left side of the colon, and on the right, you don't want that to be translated because it's going to go to the final document, which is going to be in one language usually.
Well, the other thing is you, for your logic, this is what I found when I did the translations in A to J Author. I actually had like double variables in a way, because the value, I would say, if the value of this variable is X, then do this. But the thing is, so for example, if, so tell me, is the parent the mother or the father? So the person would pick mother, but mother would be in Spanish. Yep. But my logic would be, if the Spanish, if this Spanish variable is madre, then make the equivalent English variable be mother, and if mother, then you know what I mean? Then do something. You see what I mean? You see what I'm saying?
That's exactly what this kind of addresses. So in Docassemble, you can have two versions. I guess it's the same in Hot Docs, where you can have kind of the key, and then you can say what the display value of it is. And then also, you have the ability to say what the merge value is. And this is...
That would be right, yeah.
Yeah. So this is basically that problem. So originally, both sides were being offered to translate. I don't remember specifically for this type of choices, or maybe another type. And the translator kind of mostly picked up on that. One of our translators was not as good.
Yeah.
And it was just a lot of trouble, because you can see how many things had to be translated. Well, it was like I think 10,000 plus words.
Nice.
So then
Well,
trying
it's
to
a
track down
huge
where is the error.
I mean, it's a really big interview.
Yeah. Figuring out where the error is was really time consuming, but
Yeah.
that was solved by just talking with Jonathan about making sure that those terms like that in a choices block were not translated, not offered to be translated, the right-hand side of it. The thing that I still have to realize, which would make it better, is, let me see, where would that look like? Trying to figure out how to easily see it. I could probably write regular expression for it, but
those are hard.
I always have to look up the syntax every time.
I know. I love regular expressions when they work, but sometimes it takes me as long to figure out what the regular expression is as to just have done it.
That's true. Well, it works if you're going to, you don't get to control the input, but otherwise it doesn't. Yeah, so like something like this on the left is what I wanted to show to the person, and I wanted to get translated. And on the right, this is inserted directly into the final document.
Right.
So I couldn't have that right-hand side get translated. And sometimes you're doing a test, like seeing what is the value of this. That's what you were talking about, Caroline. And then it breaks your test. So that's the kind of error I was trying to track down. Once we made that change, it really solved the problem. And I don't know if there's
a change with automating the spreadsheet that gets produced of what gets to be translated and what doesn't.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly. So and then I could use that to make sure there weren't things that weren't supposed to be translated that were. Yeah, something like this is another good example where I'm going to put, there's a list of choices of whatever type of protected class you're in, and I wanted to insert this text right into the template. So, that brought
when you with your translated made interview, do you have an English answer and a Spanish answer so that people can actually submit the English answer but the Spanish or like, how did you do your final your final assembled document? What does that look like?
It's only in English right now. So actually, only in English. And that's a great next step. I think like the first thing for me to translate, and I started the Spanish version, is just this list of advice that's directed right at the user. That should be translated. Really.
Yeah.
It's not right now. I did translate the Spanish version, but I have to get the formatting right and import that.
Right.
And one of the big use cases, of course, is like you are a helper. You're helping somebody who speaks a different language. So you're running the interview in their language, or in English maybe. But in the end, you want to generate the documents in their native language for them to look at later.
Right.
So I want to let the user, especially if they're an attorney or other advocate, choose to generate these instructions in whatever language we have available.
Right, and maybe 2 languages.
Yeah, maybe English and Spanish. So or whatever. That's the first document. So that's what I'm going to test out is having it be available based on whatever language they choose from that drop-down menu. Languages default to that, but let them say, actually, I want it to be in this language, as well as English.
And the other thing is for your answer itself, whether you would have that be bilingual, or whether you would have it be one English answer. So essentially, they should have a copy of the answer that they file. But should it be, English and Spanish, right next to each other on the same page, or should they have a Spanish page and an English page? Because that's like this translation philosophy that I've been trying to figure out. So one of the things I want to do is, in Wales, everything is bilingual, right? There's any notices you get from the government or the water board or electrical, everything is by from the surgery, from the doctor's office, everything is bilingual. And sometimes it's all in English on one page and the back of it is all in Welsh. And sometimes you have, line by line alternating. And I feel like there's in translation studies, there must be some principle that helps you make that decision.
Yeah, that's an interesting question. Like, so when do you need a separate document? Then you're saying, like, basically when should be inline versus when should be in the separate document, and when should you just show one version of it? Yeah.
And I sort of feel like the answer should be inline, because once you get a significant amount of content, different languages are different lengths, and so it's really hard to match one page to the other. Do you know what I mean?
I do. And I mean, we have something that we could work with there, which is, there already is a Spanish language answer, right? Which you must have seen.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, there is. Yeah, that's right.
So that would be an easy one to do. The other languages would be a lot more work. But
yeah, but you've got the Spanish. I mean, because you have the Spanish template already there, you could. Look at you navigating your way around Mass Legal Help, Quentin.
Now I don't know where to go.
I don't know where to go. It'd probably be in the. You're not going to have to keep going deeper. It's probably, there's like a sample forms thing somewhere. There should be on the left. Look for self-help forms, yeah, and letters. And then, yeah, evictions. There you go.
But the Spanish version of the answer hasn't been updated, has it?
No, it's 2012, I think.
Okay.
If you scroll up to the top, I think that you might have a Spanish link at the top. No, you don't. Okay, we should put that one there. There used to be one there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, we still have the Spanish one somewhere, but I don't know.
Right. It's on there somewhere.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's see if we can find it that way.
Yeah. The search might. You might have to be in the Spanish page to find the Spanish answer.
Okay. Let me just close out. Well, anyway.
Yeah, anyway.
That's an example of it. One more thing I could just point out is, I should probably close that so I'm not getting notifications or uploaded to YouTube. I think this will be helpful. So I mean, my model was hot docs. I haven't tried this yet, but I asked Jonathan to add this new, kind of thinking about the translation issue when you have a list of choices. And so, what was it called? I think it's like called a triple or something.
Triple?
I think that's what he called it. Oh no, it's a context object. Here we go. So I think this would be really helpful for if I'm starting a new project for translated text.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how it integrates with the translation system yet. My guess is it might not be, because it was kind of being built as we went along. It's like building the airplane and flying it.
Yeah.
So this lets you kind of keep that static text that's going to be used for comparisons easily, and have a different version that shows on the screen and a different version that goes in the document.
Right.
You'd have those three versions of text that are all stored in one place, so you don't have to think about mapping it the same way. So I haven't tested it yet. These are basically the types. So you have document, docx, pandoc, and then question. I guess that's the version showed to the user. So it's a way to have question-independent sets of choices that are kind of nicely formatted, and I think that's a good thing to use now that it exists for like kind of more robust building of your interviews and choices, and having those standalone can be helpful for a lot of situations when you want to make sure they match and continue to match.
beyond translations, depending on
Yeah.
how you're going to present the information. Yeah.
Yeah, it's basically a mirror of the multiple choice object that's already in. It's in Hot Docs. So it's kind of offers the same kind of features as what I was. But I don't know if anyone's using it yet. Jonathan made it when I was talking with him about this use case, and I'm guessing other people haven't encountered it yet.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
We were jumping around a little bit, but I just wanted to show you your question about highlighting in colors. That's something that is there for the translation file. So any
I think
of any color.
That really helped. When I had to send a translation off, the colors were really helpful to my translators.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, there's still chances for people to make errors, especially if because those aren't sensitive, I think, in search and replace.
Yeah.
And depending on how your translator is doing, if they're taking some shortcuts, which aren't bad shortcuts, they probably doesn't make sense to manually change the same thing everywhere in a big document.
Right.
But they can introduce mistakes. So that's the other kind of thing you have to do for quality control.
But they should read through it too, because of course, those variables you've got, if you translate the sentence, it's going to be in a different order anyway, Yeah. So, but that's a really good thing about having the spreadsheet, is having each kind of chunk, it makes it manageable so that you have, you can see the context of it, but you don't see the whole flipping interview you can see how it works, so you can move things around in the different order.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a really good point. I'm trying to think if I could find an example of that. Let me see. It would look like this. Oh, no, that won't really work because there has to be something.
No, it's going to be hard. I don't know how you're going to find an example because...
well, there's this one line if statement.
Yeah, there's not going to be anything consistent except the variable.
Right.
So you'd have to know. Yeah, I wouldn't worry about it. I could
probably figure it out. Just
yeah.
Like we were saying before, it might be faster just to. No, this doesn't have the same options anyway. Okay. I'm not sure you can actually do regular expressions when you're searching in Excel. But there are a few places where I'll just show you in a new file. There's this style of statement here. And I'm going to just pretend this is a docx file, even though it's not. This is a style of inline if statements, which are really nice. They take up a lot less room than the full if statement.
Does it takes two curly brackets?
Well, only when you're doing it inside a
question.
Well, inside a Jinja tag.
Yeah.
And so inside your document. And it's more concise than this version, right? Where you have to put a new line in between.
And can you just show that again? Because if it's to the left of the if, then it's true, and to the right, yeah. Right. Kendall was explaining this to me the other day, and I'd written a note about it, and I thought, what? But this was the thing, because we did this on the, when we had to do the PDF, we were sending values, that whole thing about custody or support or whatever it was on that form. It was an inline if, just like this. So, right. This is really helpful, because I'd forgotten. I was thinking, what statement would look like this? But this would be perfect.
Well, you have to be careful if that's going to be language you want translated, because the quotes, whatever language is in the quotes, is not going to be offered for translation. So you can
because it's in an if statement.
Right. So you might have a version of this where you're going to say child if there's only one child, and children if not. Right. And then your sentence will read kind of nonsensically if it's translated into Spanish. If just
it would be child and children instead of niño and niños or something like that. Yeah. Gotcha.
Yeah. So that's just, I think, something to remember when you're thinking you might translate it. You can't use that.
So I think this is what I did. So I used to say, if we did this, then we'd also say, if my Spanish variable, and then so I would have variables that were specifically Spanish to get these values.
That would be a way to do it. I think you might be able to use the DA context object if that is translated. Yeah, I haven't tried it to see exactly how it would work, but I think it should be possible to say, I'm going to want the question version or the document version or the docx and only translate one of those three versions. If it doesn't do that yet, I think the translation system could be extended to make that possible. So I think that's the best solution, because then you can still refer to, instead of having it be true, you'd say like, here would be like context docx, that's what I want to put in, the docx version of it.
Of that variable.
Yeah. And I guess it would be context, what would we call it? Like child, probably.
Oh.
Something like that, because it's a dictionary, I guess. So
I see.
If let's say our list of choices is called context, there's a key in that list, which is going to be something like child, or this example, children. So that would be a solution to it, actually, like where you can.
Would you have docx on the else as well?
Yep. I would need to do that. Yep. I'm assuming that's the way that it works, but I haven't tested it.
Well, I'm not anywhere near there yet, so I'm glad you're recording this.
Something like this.
Yeah.
Right. Just for the example that we were just talking about.
Yeah.
So that would be a way to solve that. So I think that would be a good change to make in and made. I think there are a few places where I'm doing that the wrong way. And definitely another big project that I start, I would try to remember that.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that was a lot of talk about the translation. I guess I should probably, just for context, show where you get that translation.
Oh, how you do it? How you create the file?
Just under the utilities menu here. So underneath your name, you have a list of utilities as one of the menu options. And then you just type in the name of the question file, the path to that file.
The question? You mean the YAML? Oh, questions YAML. Yeah, gotcha.
Yeah, exactly. And then language, which it says it has to be an ISO 639-1 code. And that was like, oh, wait a second. Haitian Creole doesn't have an ISO 639-1 code. It actually doesn't matter. It does have some implications because that language code is used in more than one place, but.
Right. Well, I guess the thing is that if you're going to use that context tool, that matters, because you're going to, you might identify them. Maybe you won't identify the language. Maybe it'll just be docx, and then you're okay. But other than that, because really the spreadsheet just produces, the English and what needs to be translated. So you just pick whatever language you want to translate it into on the next column, right?
Yeah, and I think really you would never want to have, there's one context you'd never want translated. I'm not sure what he labeled it. I guess it's just document, maybe. I'm not sure, actually. Maybe there needs to be one more type of context. Or maybe question is the one, but maybe it's right for question.
Yeah, question's your original, is basically your origin language, right? Maybe not.
Yeah, but if we're thinking of choices, then there should maybe be a fourth option here. There really should be, right? Because one version is not going to ever be translated. It's just a key that you're going to leave alone.
Right.
So I don't think that exists here, actually. So that's something that maybe I have to talk about with Jonathan to see if we can change the context object for that. once you run that, did I actually navigate away from
No, you just, we went to utilities and we started talking about the ISO thing. You've got it on the right. Go right, yeah.
Oh, okay. Sorry, it was just the Zoom thing getting in the way, so I couldn't see it.
Yeah, as it
You
does.
download a file that looks exactly like this one here, except the column H won't be filled out yet.
It's empty.
Yeah.
Yeah, so then they just copy the one on the left and then translate it as they go, yeah.
Exactly.
Cool. That's fantastic.
The nice thing is if you have to rerun this when you've added new screens to your interview. Otherwise, it does give you an error message.
What gives you an error message?
Docassemble will give you an error if you don't have the translated version. Sorry, not if you leave it empty.
When you
can leave it empty like this. So this block is just not translated. It's going to stay in English.
Right.
Which is just an artifact.
I'm not sure at what point do you get the error?
If you don't even have that row in your spreadsheet.
Why would you not have the row in the spread? If you're gonna download an Excel spreadsheet, right? So what are you talking about an error?
What you do, Docassemble would give you an error that says that variable is missing. If there's no translation for it. If there's no row for it in your translation file. But
are you talking about to bring it back in again?
Let's say you add a new question to your interview.
Right.
And after you've already done the translation, you have to go back and run the translation process again. And what I wanted to...
Yeah.
Because you have words that Docassemble doesn't know about yet, and it thinks you probably do want to translate those. But the solution is it's not that hard. You just have to rerun that translation process, right. And it's going to it's already going to know about the words that you've already translated.
Oh, okay.
That's what I was going to say, is that it's actually relatively painless. So when I had to, when I asked Jonathan to change it so that some of those choices weren't translated by default, it was easy to rerun the translation file, export, and
then they were blank where it needed to be translated. Yeah.
Yeah. It had fewer rows because they no longer needed to be translated, but that didn't matter for purposes of downloading a new file. It just showed less, and so it was like a one-step thing. Instead of having to go in and delete the rows I didn't want, automatically the right file, and it had the translations that I needed in it.
Yeah. So you see here, maybe this is an older file. On row 127, you've got summons in English. You've got nothing in Spanish.
Yeah, that word I wanted to not get translated, I believe.
Oh, right. You want to keep summons, yeah.
Yeah.
So if you don't have a translation in there, you just keep
the row in, but don't fill.
Yeah.
And it stays English. That's where context helps. Like this one, I don't really know why. If I had an ID here for this question 21, it would help me figure out. Yeah, and I think it's because I only had one choice, but I don't think the word summons is displayed to the user.
Mm-hmm.
This is obviously one of the fields.
Yeah.
So I have a question. One piece that you've both alluded to, but I haven't seen in action yet. There's a way to import this file after the translation is made?
Yeah, so I can show you what that looks like too. It's not really an import in the sense that it doesn't actually put it into your YAML file, but you just have to list it in this block here. So lines 30.
Oh, down there, translation.
That's all you have to do.
And so so that becomes so that your spreadsheet is a static file that you upload to the server, and you run your English YAML, and it just translates. It's like it translates it on the fly.
Yep.
Wow, that's amazing.
So it's doing a million copy and pastes, so you don't have to. That is in the blink of an eye.
Yeah.
That is genius. I love it.
Yeah, that is really cool.
Really,
it is such a time saver.
It is like this is, you know, the idea was inspired by like the text management tool that I forget which legal aid program made that for hot docs. And when I really enjoyed that presentation that Transcend did for LHI a while ago, or maybe it wasn't for LHI, maybe it was LSMTAP. But anyway, that was a really good panel. And then I realized that was what their translation memory systems that a lot of translators use work that same way. So that was why I suggested we do it that way.
Well, I mean, the thing is also it keeps everything together too, which is one of the problems, so that you don't have different. Well, I mean, you're going to have different versions in a way, but it's not like you have 5 different YAML files, one for each language.
Yes, and it's really hard to update that too, right? Because this is what I had before.
Yeah, it's really
the first
hard.
version of the translation we did just for Spanish. That was a standalone YAML file.
Yeah.
And if I want to go back and fix something in here,
you gotta go find
especially
it.
if there's no ID file, I have to really speak Spanish to figure out what needs to be updated where.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's a much better system.
Yeah, that's great.
And it's also so great because you could just do a spot edit of the translation. Like someone say, oh, by the way, the wording of this sentence is not how a native Spanish speaker would say that or something like that. So you could just then edit the Excel file and then
upload it, replace
upload it. You're good. That's super easy. Wow.
Oh my God.
It's a really powerful system. Nice. I agree.
When did this come about? I know I haven't been at these meetings for a few weeks, but geez, the world has changed.
The last couple months. So, I mean, we wanted to add 4 more translations, which we have now. And this is a kind of brainstorming with Jonathan about how to best do it. And then he added it for us.
Mm-hmm.
That is great.
There was still a lot of cleanup work, but I think next time, if I had to do the same project, it would go smoother because of those things we learned on the way and that actually were improved and implemented in the actual native document.
Well, you have to do it. I mean, the thing is, you can everybody needs somebody to use the stuff so that you know how it works in real life when people are really using it. You can't anticipate all the problems you're going to have until you start doing it.
That's completely true. Yeah. So this is how it works. It's pretty straightforward. We'll just have this whole thing be like a little primer on the translation system, I guess, unless people have questions that we should get right to. So these links, this is the way that I figured it out, that I wanted to do it, kind of trying to read around, and maybe there are better ways to present it. But an older version of Made used radio buttons, and then you had to click continue, or it would refresh the screen, which was a little distracting the way that it worked. But so these links actually change it, and they change the screen that you're on. You don't have to wait till you get to a new screen to see it in your native language.
You know, one thing, Quentin, I don't know if this would, you can do, when you do that, you do English, Espanol, can you do like a hover or something? Or you know how you do them before, so that if you go to Espanol, so if you don't really, I mean, presumably you know what you're doing when you come here. But what would be nice is when you hover over Espanol, you get the Spanish, the title. Do you see what I mean? So you get the title, Defensa de Massachusetts para Despejo, or whatever it is. Do you see what I mean? So it hovers up, and that's one. And the one side of it is that a lot of those hovers don't work on phones.
Right.
But I noticed that some hovers in Docassemble do work in phones. I don't know why. I don't know whether it's a different. I don't remember what it is. But I've noticed that some things you can get to work in Docassemble, which are in HTML hovers, don't work. So I think it's a different thing. But my point is that, so it's not just, here's the English name for this, see the Spanish version of it. If you know what the Spanish, like that.
This is what you're thinking of, right? Yeah.
Right. So, and you can still, I guess you have to click on that
You have to click
palabra
it.
verde?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that wouldn't work, because if you click on Espanol, you go to Espanol. But it is a link, right?
It's a link that, yeah, just does a pop-up though.
No, not that one, the Espanol.
These are links, yeah.
Right. So if you just had the title be the title of the maid interview, but in that language, that helps people understand what it is they're getting when they recognize Spanish, but let them know what the title is, what they're going to go look at, what they're actually going to see. Do you see what I mean?
That's a great idea. Yeah, so right now, I have to improve this, so I'm going to have to include the www here. Just how, not 4 W's.
No. I have 2 questions. One is stopping me from doing anything, and the other one was about the photograph, which I'm hoping you can help. But I don't know if Matt's got questions.
No, thank you for asking, but no, I don't, because we're not yet into our development. So go ahead.
Okay. I'll let Quentin, you finish whatever it is you're doing.
Oh, well, okay. I'll show you really quickly, just so people are aware of it, especially if they're coming to this video later. One more thing that I did just to make it simpler here is, I'm having a little trouble.
You had front pages, separate front pages.
This little helper file here lets you create that list of languages.
All right.
That are formatted a nice way. So
can you put the hover in there?
Probably. I have to think about it. So what we're using is the function that Docassemble has. It's called action. I forget the actual name of it. I think it's just action URL.
Oh yeah.
Should be able to spot it in this.
There, URL _ action down at the bottom, second line. Yeah. Change language.
There you go. There it is. Yeah.
Oh, there. So you have target self. Then the link is the URL, IURL plus language 0 plus. I bet you could put it in there.
Yeah, actually, you're right. We should be able to put that right there. Either a title, which is what shows up when you hover over it.
Yeah.
Or like you said, there actually is a really good point to try to use something that's compatible on mobile phones. So,
well, the problem is you've got to click that palabra verde, and if you click Espanol, you're not.
Yeah.
I don't know how you can do that.
Well, here, this is what we would need to use. So it would be like this. This is, I guess, the key thing that changes it.
But you only get that by clicking on it, right?
You only get it by clicking on it, not by hovering.
Yeah. Right. So what you want is a hover, not a click, because if you click on it, you see what it is.
That's true. Yeah, you probably can't make both kinds of clicks. You're right.
Trade-off, right? You offer it to people who are on desktops, and if you're on a phone, you don't get it because the technology doesn't exist on phones.
Yeah. Well, actually, let's just try changing this. Oh, wrong thing to inspect. So.
But I think the thing though is right. If you click on it, you're going to change to it anyway, right?
Well, let me just try.
Okay.
Editing this and see if we can get it. So I think we just need to add a title to that.
Yeah. Do you have to be on the English page to add that?
Well, I'm just editing it just in the browser context. There you go. That's what you want, right? Yeah. Something like that.
Right, yeah. So you won't see that on a phone, but at least you'll see, it helps people who are on computers, who are not on mobile devices.
The only thing is, I'm not sure, we'd kind of have to hover and code that in some other way to what's the version that you want translated. This is all hard-coded.
Yeah, right.
I could make another argument, I guess.
So you'd add title. In this thing, a target equals self, href equals, you can put title, and then up above where you have your language list is where you would have another list of choices, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you've got there must be another, I would think it would
I guess I
be,
could
it
make
would be
another parameter here.
yeah.
Anyway, that would be very doable.
And then you have a hover.
Yeah, it would just make it a little bit more complicated in
the
interview file, but not terribly so. So
right.
This is what it looks like when you're using it. Okay, let me just see if I can figure out where I'm doing that. Here we go. This is what you have it's embedded inside your question.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So if you wanted that, it would be a manual translation thing, because this would all be marked as being something that the translator shouldn't translate by default.
Right.
But that's
and you
okay.
wouldn't yeah.
There's probably a way around that.
Yeah. Anyway, I just thought I'd throw that out there just for a little,
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Finessing.
Okay. Should I do your question about the camera first? I'm not sure the best way to show it.
I have two questions. One is the camera, and the other is I did some documentation about how we do GitHub, and I screwed it up. I mean, I'm following my own documentation, and it's not working. So I was wondering if you could just look at my error message and figure out what am I doing wrong. Sure.
Yeah. Well, let me just show you. Like, the camera is really simple.
Yeah.
I think so. I think I have that here. This is all you have to do. Just add. You can put the maximum image size if you want, but you just have to set it to data type camera, and then that will only inside a mobile phone. It will actually ask you if you want to use your camera or if you want to upload a file.
Right.
So I can show you.
And if you use your camera, so basically, this is the juvenile record request, which now requires you to upload a photo ID. And
right.
So we can say, either make a copy of your photo ID and include it in the, in the self-addressed stamped envelope with this form that you've signed, or take a picture of your photo ID right now, right?
Yeah. How will the clinics work, do you think? Do you think people will be using their own devices to do it? Or do you think that they will be using a laptop that's brought there by the clinic facilitator?
I have no idea. I mean, Pauline was kind of negative about it because she said people they don't know how to do anything, And I said, well,
I think she's wrong about
we're
that.
talking about young people, right, who use their phones for everything. And they probably do know how to take a picture of their thing, So I wasn't sure. I just wanted to try it out and see if it works. Because really what's going to happen is, so you do all this on your phone, right? You upload it, and then where do you go to print? Because it's a juvenile record request, you have to print it and put it in an envelope and mail it to Decigus or wherever it is you send it, right? So you're going to have to go somewhere to print it. And Pauline said, you mentioned the court service centers, which is a great idea. Of course, there are only like 6 court service centers in the state.
Right.
But the other thing is, Google Maps, they were doing these fusion tables, which were fantastic. It was fantastic. But I've only used it. We did some LEP maps on Mass Legal Services so we could see where the highest concentrations of low-income LEP speakers are by language. So that's good for advocates, but it doesn't help clients. They're not interested. They don't care. It's not relevant.
Are you saying that's how they chose where the court service centers would go?
No. I'm just what I'm saying is court service centers would be a place to go, but there are only 6 of them.
Okay.
I mentioned libraries to Pauline, and Pauline goes, well, you know how useful they are. They're never open when you want to get there, and in low-income areas, they're even less accessible, etc. But I had this kind of brainstorm. We were talking about places you could go to print out your stuff, right? And in addition to the 6 court service centers in the state. So where are places you could go? And when we first started this mapping thing, I wanted a map because I wanted to know in the poorest areas, and I was specifically interested in high concentrations of low income LEP speakers in the state. That's because we want to do outreach. So you want to focus on those community places in the most relevant areas. And so we mapped organizations what organizations are in these pockets. And then it occurred to me that for the juvenile record request and other document assemblies that you want to allow people to print, so they're using their phone. They could do it they can use their phone at Starbucks. They can use not that they're going to be going to Starbucks, McDonald's, or wherever they're going to, they know where, Walmart, right? You know where the free Wi-Fi is, right? So you go there, you do your interview, then you have to know where to go to print it. And if we had a map with the places where you could go to print your stuff, that would be so cool.
Yeah, I mean, one other thought is one reason to use Docassemble is because you can integrate everything. And I think Michelle was thinking about this, but there's companies like Lob, and I think she found another one that might have been better, but I can't remember the name of it right now. You send them a file, they print it for you, and they have
and then how do you get how do you
they
get
mail
it
as well?
They mail it as well.
Yeah. So you pay like $1 or something per
right,
object.
but how do you pay them? How do you pay them?
Well, you have to figure that part out. So, I mean, your clients are going to have to pay for printing probably at a library, 10 cents a page.
You pay, right, but how many people, I mean, if they don't have bank accounts or Apple Pay, I mean, if they're low-income clients, how do they pay online? They're not going to have credit cards.
I think what you need to do is get a grant that pays for it. And then you say, we're going to spend $1,000 on this and see what the demand is like.
People to, right.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense.
Offer people, I mean, it's not just low-income people who have criminal records they want to seal. Maybe it's when they start having more money that they realize they have to clean it up. But sometimes it's the other side.
Right, but people who aren't low income don't have as many problems as people who are low income.
That's very true. But they still don't have good places to get help with the sealing. Like there's no private lawyers who are handling this right now.
I mean, yeah, but the people who are low income are going to have a much harder time figuring out where to get this stuff printed. That's all I'm saying.
Oh no, I totally agree with you. I'm saying like maybe you can make an appeal at the end of the interview, like say, Upsolve is, I think, really good at this.
Yeah.
Which is why I thought of that idea. And they just say like, because again, people who are getting bankruptcy have a choice to do this.
6,000 forms they've got to print out.
Yeah, and I forget. Let me see. They did this a nice blog post about it, but I'm trying to see where I can find it. Maybe this is the one. And they just put an appeal on there that says pay for 5 other people to get their bankruptcies done, and they have a suggested donation amount. So maybe if you included that, it would become self-sustaining over time.
Right. You have to figure out where that fund would go.
So this is just like, will you donate? This is what I was thinking of actually. It's like cover most of my costs, cover some of my costs.
Yeah.
And you can say how many people you'd help by paying.
Right.
I don't know where they got these numbers from, but if all you're talking about is mailing and if that's the real only cost, then you can't ask for that much. And I don't know how quickly it would subsidize other people. But if you think of it in terms of overhead, the technology, building time, like all the donated time that people put in.
Right. And then you also think about how many people
if you get like 5% of people to donate who use it, and you ask them to donate $25, like that's very little for the people who can afford it.
Right.
Maybe you end up being able to sustain the printing costs over time that way.
I mean, the other thing too is that when you do this mailing, you want Yob or Lob or whatever it is you want them to mail something to DeCegis or wherever you sent, commissioner or whatever, but you also want them to mail a copy to you, right? So
Maybe
you've got
an
to
email
print it
copy
out.
is good enough for you to have.
I guess you have the electronic copy, so if you could
Yeah.
save that on your phone, got that, right?
It's an interesting, I mean, it's something to think about. Like, these solutions mostly are not aimed at this. A lot of them were built for direct mail. Someone could do really nicely if they had something that was aimed at document assembly for courts, but they might get kind of put out of business once more courts have e-filing. Because that's the other answer, right? Like,
that's not going to happen that quickly.
No, we're probably right about that.
It isn't going to happen very quickly in Massachusetts.
Yeah. No, you're probably right. But why do they make you go through the hoops of mailing something in when they can get an email set up that accepts the document?
Because they're not set up for it. That's why.
Yeah.
A, they're not set up for it. B, they're not interested in it. You know, I mean, they don't. Well, you should just get Pauline started on that, you know?
I do think this is a really good investment here, is to just get some money up front from a grant to pay for printing costs. Because you get 20 people using it a month, that's going to be a really good start.
Right.
And you can show them how easy it is to use and encourage them to not print it if they don't need to.
Right.
But you reduce the friction. Someone's gone all the way through the interview. They don't want to save the information. They're going to give up when they have to print it. If you want to solve that problem, just making that frictionless for people it's worth a couple $1,000.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's a great idea. Okay.
Your other question, sorry.
I'm stuck on making a package and getting it up to GitHub.
Okay, why don't you share your screen for this part?
Okay. Share. Okay. All right. God, didn't you love it when you're sharing your screen? You get this toolbar, you can't do anything. Okay, so here are my instructions to myself. So this is all also put on the organization, right? So I go to the Mass Legal Help GitHub, create a new repository, which I've done, and it has to be Docassemble and then camel case, right? And then my instructions aren't that clear. Then I go back to the development server and log in as me, go to folders, packages, and then my instructions aren't good here. Type in just the name of the new repository, which is what I tried to do. Juvenile. So here, that's
interesting.
So here I have, I've created this, in theory, empty repository. I've just gone onto Mass Legal, right? So here's my empty repository. Then I go to my packages and I create this thing, juvenile record request, and I just try to save it. Okay, and then it says, this isn't actually right, because it says type in, okay, log into the, wait a minute. You must begin the name of your new repository with Docassemble, your new repository. So I've done that this is on GitHub. Then
have you tried a pull instead of a push?
I haven't done either one yet. So basically, yeah, so basically
let's go back to GitHub packages, not GitHub, sorry, your Docassemble packages screen. That's that tab all the way on the right.
Here. So so I've just saved this, so I should delete it, right? Let me delete this package.
Sure.
Okay.
Oh, it says this is published on GitHub, actually. So did you push it to GitHub already?
Well, I keep getting error messages.
Okay. I feel like when I first started using the GitHub integration with Docassemble, it worked on an organization account by default. But I believe that now you have to actually take a couple of extra steps.
Well, so our theory was you create this empty package on GitHub. You download it to the Docassemble, to your to Docassemble server. and then you actually, you have this empty package on your Docassemble server. Then you put in the files you want, and then and this is what I can't remember. And then you do this, and then you go over, to here, and you pull it or push it, or I don't know. I mean,
okay.
I can't remember. And I wrote it all down, and it's not working.
It may have worked when you wrote it, but it might not work anymore. So
that would make me feel a lot less stupid.
Well, I remember having problems with this like several months ago too, but if you've been using the same packages,
okay.
It might not
all right.
matter. So,
all right. So
now go to your GitHub screen.
Pardon?
Go to your GitHub account.
GitHub.
And go up to your personal one, I guess. Is that, I don't know if maybe you're logged in and you have access to it.
This is my personal GitHub, but I'm a team member on the organization. I'm a member of the organization.
That should be fine then. So just go up to your profile page then. So it's that, the icon view, your profile.
Yeah. Oh, just your profile, okay.
Or it's either your profile or settings. So let's see. I think, it's settings actually.
Oh, we have to go, here, settings, okay. Okay.
Okay, so go to it's either applications or developer settings. Let's just check applications first.
GitHub
authorized GitHub apps or authorized OAuth? Yeah, your personal password.
This is my password. Oh God, I don't know what it is. Wait a minute. Maybe
it's like you have it saved, maybe.
Let's hope so. This is the whole, I don't want NH legal.
Now click on OAuth apps. Might be that. Okay, Docassemble dev, that's the one. So click on that. And you want to add permissions to your organization. Oh, well, you have those already.
Yeah.
That's all you should need to do to let it connect.
Well, it's doing, okay, right. So
let's see the error.
Done. Right?
Well, one other question is, does this repository, it seems like you published it to GitHub, so where did it go?
Well, I created a repository on GitHub. Yeah, who knows?
You created one repository under your organization account, and did the package that you published from inside Docassemble go to your organization account, or did it go to...
It went to the organization. It looks like it went to the organization account.
Okay.
Well, I don't know, because this is the repository I created. If I go to my own,
it doesn't look like it's listed there.
It didn't go, it didn't go to my own Docassembles. It just went to, right. So it did, so the point is that I created an empty one on GitHub. And I tried to connect, and I tried to create an empty one on Docassemble, and then move the files that I'd already written on Docassemble into it. But I can't, for some reason, I can't pull so if I do this, GitHub, right?
Mm-hmm.
Commit message first, and it's not, this is what's happening.
This might even have broken in the last week now that I think about it, but let's see. I
get this message, whatever the heck this is.
Get checkout. Let's scroll down a little bit and see what else it says.
Tell me when to stop.
You can go all the way to the end and let's just see.
Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't do a README. Maybe I should have done the README on GitHub.
Saying there's no master branch is what it's saying. So go back to your repositories. I don't know if that's really accurate, but.
Let me go to, I have to.
Go back to the organization account.
That's what I'm trying to figure out how to do that.
I think if you go on the left, it says organizations.
Oh, there it is, right, yeah. Okay, there we go. Okay, so go here.
And
no.
Maybe, well, let's try. Maybe it's
Upload.
not actually. Okay, click on the README button, the README link, just on the a little bit further over to the right in that same line you're on.
Oh, gotcha. Mm-hmm.
Like maybe just adding one file, so then just save it.
Where's this cancel?
At the very bottom.
Commit new file.
Commit new file, yeah. I wonder if that'll make a difference, because that's going to make sure at least it has a branch. And let's try committing it again.
Yeah. Oh, so the README creates a branch. I think I might
Possibly. Yeah.
If I try it again, I'll just try it again.
Yeah, just try it. I'm just kind of experimenting to see if that makes a difference.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if it will. If these steps don't work, what I would do is publish it. It's going to go to your personal account. Then you can move it to the organization account.
That was it. It needed a README file.
Yeah, I think it's just because it was a repository that it showed up on GitHub, but it hadn't been initialized because it didn't have any files in it.
All right. So then the next thing I'm supposed to do is I want to add the files. CDEFJ. I want to add that file. And where's templates? No. Here we go. So, okay, so do I have to pull it? Oh, wait a minute. I might have to pull it now. Push your empty package. Oh, I haven't done this. Push your empty create your new package. Push your empty package. GitHub. Okay, we did that, right? Initial commit. Okay, did that. Add collaborators. Create branches. Oh, you can do that later. Protect the main branch. Pull the package. So I haven't done that. Once you've been granted access to the interview, you should go into your playground folder packages. On the top menu bar, you should see an option to pull. So I want to pull that in before I add these files, right?
Well, it looks like you actually should be all set now. Let's see what happens if we go back to your repository.
Well, I haven't.
On GitHub.
Yeah.
And let's see what it's showing since you successfully were able to push something.
Well, I hadn't added any files to it yet.
But you should at least see the README that Docassemble creates. Yeah, there you go. There you go. So you don't. It seems like you don't have to do the pull step. And I'm looking at your instructions. I noticed it said protect branch.
Yeah, that was because we have these. That's because we want to protect the master branch because we want. If we have collaborators, we want them to do pull requests rather than just overwrite the master branch all the time.
Right.
So there's no questions folder here yet.
Well, that's probably just because you don't have any questions that you uploaded.
Right. Not yet.
But those other folders were clearly created by Docassemble. So.
Right. Right.
So I think that's working.
So I probably don't need to pull the package.
Yeah.
As long as I did the GitHub button in the commit. Right. Okay. All right. I have to do these directions. So I have to add the thing about the README file, and I have to, these 4 and 5, you must begin the name of your new repository with Docassemble, your new repository. Log in. Use the drop down and go to your playground, then click on folders and add. Type in just the name of the new repository. That's this. This is part of creating a. These are the same. I didn't make a comment here.
Yeah. So it seems like that definitely works, Caroline. I think the only thing I would say is like you made it. I'm not sure what other features of it that you need from doing it that way. But you might be able just to create it normally, all in Docassemble, and then migrate it to the organization account. That's an alternative that might be fewer steps.
Mm-hmm.
So that's just another thing to think about. And I think, I remember you saying something about like the owner name is maybe would look wrong, but it should be changeable.
Yeah.
I don't know if that will end up being easier or harder for you. But for these steps, looks like all you have to do is add a
Well,
step.
the step I missed here is in here, when you create a new package when you're in GitHub and you create a new one, let's see,
create a README file.
you have to create a README file.
Or at least some file in the repository. It probably doesn't matter if it's a README file or any file.
Okay, and then in here, you need to create a README. Oh, so we should be meeting. Are they just going to join us on here? Is Will going to?
Looks like
I'm right here actually already.
Okay, sorry, Will.
Okay,
no
well,
worries, no rush.
Stop the recording, and we could kind of finish up.